Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on another episode of the Business Spotlight Podcast, coming to you, of course, uh, from here in Nashville, Tennessee. My guest today is Jimmy Speyer. He's the CEO of Glass House, which he happened to have founded just last year in 2023. We're going to learn about his journey, how he got to where he is, and learn a lot about the cool offering his company has. Glasshouse provides a marketing tool that can benefit tradespeople or anybody who does work on the home in the residence. So, with that, Jimmy, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you grew up and where you went to school and kind of, how did you get to being a founder here? It's kind of a big question, I guess, but
For sure. Well, thanks, Greg. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. So my name's I'm Jimmy. I'm the CEO and founder of Glass House here in Nashville. We actually have a distributed team around the country, but I'm located here. The business is a Nashville-based organization. I grew up in Austin, Texas. Went to school in Minnesota, the University of Minnesota. I lived in Minnesota. You might hear the accent when I say that for quite a while. I've had some stints in different companies in Indianapolis and Austin and Minnesota. And we landed in Nashville about 2 years ago. My wife and I and my two boys, you can see their names on the pictures behind me. Uh, my journey to founding a company actually was 15 years in software, in kind of startup-y, SMB, mid-market, scale-up software companies. And that was in what we call vertical software. So we do one industry. Like you just do tire manufacturers, you just do arborists, or you just do whatever the one thing is. And that started for me in restaurants. I actually had worked in restaurants in and out of college, or in college and after college. And I got into restaurant technology because it was just kind of like a way to get into technology since I came from that world a little bit. And I helped build an organization up to about $30 million in annual revenue over the course of 4 years. So really high growth, learned a lot, went from 3 salespeople, of which I was one, to about 125 people in the sales organization over those 4 years. And just learned a ton. That was really exciting. We raised a bunch of money. We built a really big business. From there, I also went to another software company in a different vertical. And so this would be a piece of advice for people who are trying to kind of learn the ins and outs of building companies is going and doing different types of businesses. It shows you a lot of perspective, right? So I went from a VC funded organization in hospitality technology to a bootstrapped, no funding, professional funding, at least in medical device technology. And so it's about as far away as you get, and learned how to apply that whole set of game plans and learnings to a completely different thing. And that included moving my family across the country. So this is like COVID had just started. And so when COVID just started, we sold our house, hopped in the car, bought a house in Indianapolis, sight unseen, over FaceTime, showed up. So you get a lot of credit for being brave, I think, sometimes in this world. So we just put the kids in the car and drove to Indiana and spent 2 years being part of getting that company from kind of going along to really taking off, ultimately selling it to a private equity company, returning a really great amount to all the early and angel investors. From there, I went to logistics tech. So another big jump, right? So let's go from hospitality to medical device, and then we're going to international freight and moving things or on boats, from China to the United States. And that was the last stop before I got to found my own company. So that long kind of circuitous journey there of trying different things and then ultimately deciding that I was hopefully ready, but certainly had the desire to go out and start something on my own.
cool, man. That's awesome. And so in each industry that you hopped, it was still software that you were offering, right?
Always software, but every software company eventually gets into some level of services. So you have to learn how to incorporate those two things, especially if you're selling more complicated products. We sold ERP, big back office tools, or we sold international freight tools. They come with a certain amount of human capital to get them going. But yes, it was always a software company. There was always a product that was a software product underlying everything.
Yeah, awesome. And all of those were, I would imagine, software as a service. You didn't deploy them on local servers, or companies' data centers, or was it a combination? Or
These were all cloud-based SaaS software as a service applications. So
Mhm.
subscriptions for those who aren't in that world. You
Oh,
just pay
cool.
every month. We keep working on it. So you don't have to pay for all the infrastructure and servers and stuff like that. And the
Hmm.
software is delivered to you kind of just you log in through a website.
Yeah, and so the restaurant application, was it like an operational type of software, or what exactly was that you were selling to restaurants?
It was an operations back office software. So we did accounting,
Ah,
inventory, scheduling, labor management, payroll, all the things that would happen behind the wall and back in the restaurant. So it
mm.
was not guest facing. So you might be
Okay,
a guest at a
gotcha.
restaurant,
Hmm.
Open Table, or you see the point of sale system. You
Hmm.
would not see this software. It would be the same way that you don't see all the wires running in the walls of your house, but
Yeah,
they're there.
right, right. Well, I'm curious that back office software for a restaurant is so different from running any other business. You were able to differentiate yourself and sell into that space. Is that right?
Yeah, so we had a really unique offering that was combining a financial platform with an operational platform, which that was the unlock that we realized is that, you know, these operational problems ultimately have financial consequences. So
Hmm.
combining those two things so that you didn't have to have multiple systems and that you could, see it all in one place was really valuable. And we were able to consolidate. You don't have to have 10 things, you can have one thing,
Hmm.
which is actually was really popular in software platforms being built about this is when I started there almost 10 years ago. That's when a lot of these platforms that have started to dominate individual verticals took off. So if you think of a Service Titan in home services or a
Hmm.
Procore in construction, you know building the operational layer within a specific vertical, that's what we were attacking and had a lot of success doing it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so you bought your house sight unseen. Is that assuming that was 2020 that you did that?
It was July of 2020. So we'd been home for several months and I was signing up for this mission. We're going to go to Indianapolis. We're going to take this company. We're going to turn the growth back up, get it ratcheted up. And it was going to be a really good learning experience and lots of fun. But I had to be there. We had to go.
Yeah.
And their whole team was there. They were all on site, local. And we all agreed that since this whole pandemic thing was going to last a couple of weeks, let's just get the ball rolling and get moving. So we sold our house and moved, assuming we'd be back in the office pretty much by the time I got there. Um, Fast forward 2 years, it didn't work out that way. But I'm super glad I went. But
Yeah.
when we got there, yeah, it was kind of like that scene in that old movie, The Firm, where they just roll up to the house and they're like, "Here's our house." Like that's what it was.
Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny. Well, and you're right. You're probably second guessing yourself when you learned that you weren't going back to the office. But after I'm sure 2 years of being there, it was definitely worth it to have been there and not have to have that move ahead of you because sometimes mentally you get something like that in your way, and having it behind you, I'm sure helped your mental attitude at least, right?
I think so. And also, I had been a remote executive at my previous company. I was the only executive who wasn't with the rest of the executive team. We had a lot of employees in Austin. We had built an office around that hub, and there was 200 people there that I was over helping, support and be responsible for. But the team that I was on was all out mostly in California, and I
Hmm.
felt that kind of distance
Hmm.
pretty acutely. So it was really important to me that I be there. And I've picked up in my career just my belief is that it doesn't have to be every day together. I mean, there's benefits of hybrid work and you can have remote employees. That's great. But having a regular cadence of connection, I think, is one of those things where it's like taking your vitamins and eating your vegetables.
Hmm.
It's better for you, even if you don't always want to do it. If I ever have the opportunity to create a choice between fully remote and at least 50% roughly in person, I'm taking 50% plus, even if it's not 100, because that there's not really a way to replace that kind of like regular ongoing connection.
Yeah, I remember when the pandemic first started, and you know, the idea, the concept of remote work was just, something that had been there. The capabilities were there for it to happen. And, I remember commentators saying, well, this is the impetus. This is going to just, distribute people and we'll never go back to the office. And I'm like, I'm not sure that's going to happen. I just can't imagine not being able to brainstorm with somebody, in the hall, or having some impromptu conversation and that not having value to it. Plus the distractions that an individual has at home. How can they be fully? It just doesn't seem like that's a good way to work. So I completely agree with you that at least 50%, if not more. And it's not a surprise to me that you see more and more CEOs saying, all right, it's over. You got to come back in the office. We're not doing this anymore. So
I like flexibility. So my
yeah,
belief around
right.
that is if you create a trusting and safe environment for employees to like be able to, incorporate their life and their work to some extent, so that when you create that boundary of here's my life, here's my work, that's when you get to the point where they oppose to each other because they are not connected, they're separate. And
That's
so if
right.
you say, listen, we're all going to be in this office half the time, 60%, 40%, whatever it is, and yeah, don't tell me you're going to the dentist. Just go to the dentist. That's fine. Like that doesn't matter.
Right.
But we do believe that there is no replacing that ability to be together virtually. And yes, there are some, we do pay for that. We pay for it like with the office space physically, but we pay for it with time. There's commutes, there's
Hmm.
other things, but it
Hmm.
has value. So I think that accepting that some things have value, but also have a cost is a very responsible way to look at the cost benefit analysis of coming back to an office versus just saying, well, everybody wants to be at home. I'm like, everybody wants lots of things. What you want and what is best for you and for the organization are not always aligned 100% all the time.
Right. Right. And you're spot on. Finding that balance, you know, and you know what? That balance may ebb and flow, but it's not 100% one way or the other. There's no question that's I don't think either way is the best, but somewhere
Yeah,
in the middle, you
I'm
know.
a dad. I coach my son's lacrosse team. I have commitments to my family, commitments to my job, commitments to my team that I support. This other lacrosse team that I help coach and lead. I need to be at practice 3 or 4 nights a week in the spring, and so I need to make sure that I have some type of schedule flexibility that allows me to be there by 5:30. If I had to be downtown until 5 or 5:30 every single night, that'd be really hard, right?
Yeah, right.
So that's important to me. I make it a priority. And then that's great. But it doesn't mean that the job should just say, cool, never come to the office again because you coach lacrosse. Why don't we figure out a way to make those two things work together instead of making you choose completely between the two?
I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, that's perfect. So in your sharing your background, you got us through your experience in the restaurant business, and then you jumped during the pandemic to medical devices, and then you talked about logistics support, and that gets us all the way to Glass House. So give us some insight into how Glass House came into being.
So I was trying to, I knew I wanted to start a software company. That's my area of expertise and experience. And I had some criteria, but I was relatively loose in how I accomplished those goals. So
Mhm.
I wanted to do something that was novel, that was new, there wasn't a ton of or didn't exist really in the world. So I wanted to solve a new problem. I wanted it to be relatively SMB mid-market focused. I don't have a passion for solving Fortune 50 business problems. It's just not something I'm passionate about. So I don't think I'll be able to put 5 or 10 years of my life into helping Exxon or, someone like that. It's just not going to get me excited every day. They have enough money to solve their problems, I promise. And I also wanted a really big market that impacted things that you could see in the world. When I
Mhm.
worked in restaurant technology, it was so much fun to always say, that's my customer. You could walk down the street and people would know who your customers were. So it was fun to talk about. When I went and sold and led sales teams in international logistics, nobody ever knew who our customer. I wouldn't like. I'd say,
Mhm.
well, that bike got moved by our. Like, it's just really hard to feel connected to that. And a friend of a friend owned a pest control company. So I had a friend, he said a guy he knew was trying to solve some problems in the pest control space
Mhm.
and came to me and said, you're looking to solve a problem. You're looking for a problem set. I think this might be your problem set. It's
Oh.
checking all these boxes for me. He's telling me about it. He goes, we want to find the best customers to work with. We want to, avoid problematic engagements. We want to grow our business. We want to do a lot of things. And there's just a relatively sophisticated technology space for our business. We have these big platforms. We have the Service Titans and the House Call Pros and the Jobbers of the world, and that's about it. We don't have a lot of tools that do anything for us around the edges. And so I spent 6 months kind of investigating and going after those problems and trying to figure out how do you really solve them. But as soon as I got into it, I realized it was checking all of the boxes for me. It was like, wow. And it's really big and it's really cool. And you get to talk to a lot of people. And when you say it's a vertical, it is, but it's really big, right? You got
Mm-hmm.
pool construction, HVAC businesses, pest control. Some of them are subscription companies. Some of them are one-time jobs. Some of them are doing $50,000 jobs. Some of them are doing $50 cleaning events, right? So
Mm-hmm.
how you solve problems for that business is super challenging because it's so large and so varied.
Yeah, yeah, it's dude. It's I think it's awesome because we coach a lot of tradespeople, a lot of the folks in the same space who are, they're 1 million and they've got maybe I don't know a few employees and they're
Mm-hmm.
looking to grow or they're looking to acquire and they're always trying to get their name out there and trying to efficiently market. And of course we teach them how to market themselves and be cost effective at their marketing approach and marketing strategy. And I'm telling you, it's you know, as far as options go, yours is, I think, really cool, man. Explain to everybody the service. So if I were a plumber, I would pay for the service and then just walk me through how you would benefit my business.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we've found during those 6 months is that people want to work with the best possible customers. We also realize that home services businesses spend 5, 10, 15% of their gross revenue. So 15 cents of every dollar you give them is going to Google or Facebook or some type of advertising. And the question was like, why are they doing that?
Mm,
And the more we interviewed and learned and got just really dug into this industry, it's because that's how it's always worked. They have basically two options. They can spend money on advertising or try and knock on some doors. There's not a lot of steps in between those two things.
mhm,
So they go out, they grab a marketing agency, they spend a bunch of money on advertising, and it's all an effort to make the phone ring. Make the phone ring, you call me, I send somebody out, they quote you, we close it, we do the work. And that's what they get good at. And they grew these muscles over the last 20, 30 years with Google, figuring out how to do that as best they can. And they, at the same time, have almost no control over that experience. They can't target those ads to specific types of buyers, really. They can do it geographically, sort of.
mhm,
But it's really just kind of spray and pray. You call me, Craig, you call me, I show up. You might be the greatest customer ever, and you might be a perfect fit for my service, but I won't know that until I
mhm,
show up. And by the way, you also called 4 other people, or you went to Angie's List and made a request, and they sent that lead to 7 other people.
mhm.
And we're all racing over to your house to try and what? Give you the lowest price. Because it just becomes a race to the bottom. So we're seeing this. Our team is investigating it. We're like, how do you solve this problem? How do you help this business not be subservient and just have to advertising? Like, you want more business? Give Google more money. This basically becomes the answer to the problem.
Right.
And what I saw was things we did in other industries that I've been a part of didn't exist in this one.
Hmm.
So I would have been used to building a sales and revenue organization and saying, what's our ideal customer? Who do we want to work with? And then how do we get in touch with them? Like, we would call them, we'd email them, we would advertise to them, of course, but we'd also engage with them directly.
Mhm,
And I didn't see that in home services. What I saw was more advertising, more phone ringing.
mhm,
And as more people are entering this market, home service market is growing faster than the economy, significantly
mhm.
faster than the economy. Some people can estimate 15, 17, 20% a year over the last couple of
Wow.
years since the COVID. So more people are showing up to this party. It's getting more competitive. Private equity is showing up and doing a lot of M&A. So you're getting more larger players, consolidation, which is those people have more money to spend, right? So if you want to advertise against them, they're going to beat you. They have unlimited funds almost sometimes. So how do you create a different channel that takes advantage of the home service market's gap in the fact that they don't do any outside like average, they don't do any targeted sales.
Hmm.
And so that's the problem that we figured out how to solve is when we do a job at your house, Craig. So
Hmm.
me and my wife actually own a home service business. And so
Oh.
let's say we're doing a job, we're doing window washing with your business, with your house. So you called us and said, Jimmy, could you send the team out? We want a quote for our house to get window washing and exterior cleaning and things like that. Before we show up, we're going to drop a pin on your address in Glass House. We do this. We drop a pin
Hmm.
on your address in Glass House and say, show me all the houses within a quarter of a mile that meet my criteria. I want houses that someone moved into in the last 2 years. I want them to be this big. I want them to be this old. I want an HVAC unit that looks like this, whatever the thing is, right? Because remember, wide space. It says, here's all the houses around Craig's house that meet your criteria. And here's their emails and here's their phone numbers. Go to work, email them, text them, call them. You can do it in the platform if you want, or you can take them out to a different tool, or you can pick up your phone.
Hmm.
But now, when I show up to your appointment, I want to have unlocked 2 or 3 other appointments around you. So I'm going to reduce my windshield time. That's huge. That's non-revenue time. I'm going to create more route density. And I took what was an inbound lead and I used it to create another lead. So I
Hmm.
basically doubled my opportunities, but I didn't increase my costs.
Hmm.
I didn't spend any more money on Google or Facebook or whoever I was advertising with, but I got another lead. And it's a pretty warm introduction when I say to those people, hey, we're coming out to my neighborhood is called Scales Farms. Hey,
Hmm.
we're coming out to Scales Farms. We're working in Scales Farms this week. So I recognize that as the homeowner. We're
Hmm.
working with Craig. He's awesome. You're awesome. Why don't we work with you too?
That's awesome, man. So I didn't know that, Jimmy. You and your wife own your own home services business.
We did. We bought a home services franchise for Pink's window washing out of Austin, Texas during
Okay.
this last year, during this process. When we got into the home service industry, one, I wanted to learn more. I wanted to
Yep.
be hands-on and be an
Right.
operator so that I could talk to operators and say, I understand. And two, I really liked the industry. Like when you get into it, you realize you're servicing people, you're solving real problems. When they're done with their job, something in the world exists. It's not just numbers and software, which is fun, but
Hmm.
it's physical and tangible, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah. And it's community, right? You're connected into the community and you're providing a service to community, which does nothing but, with the increase in performance that you can provide. I mean, and that's part of our go to market. It's like if I can coach a business to get better, right, and provide more employment, then all you're doing is continuing or adding to the growth and supporting the growth of the community. And being a part of that is like really cool and really fun, you know?
It is fun. It's a service industry for a reason. You're in the service of other people. So you have to have a service mentality and a service mindset, which I think takes me back to starting out in restaurants in college and after college, having that service industry experience, which my wife had as well. We met working in a restaurant in college. And we also loved the brand. So the Pink's window washing brand that we brought to Nashville, we're the first people to bring it to Tennessee. We thought it was super cool brand. It's making window washing actually cool, which if that's possible. And
Yeah.
so we thought that would be a neat experience to bring that to our community because we really love Nashville and we wanted that to add to that experience for everybody.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so let's see, so what did you learn uh, from owning the business that you shared with me? Obviously, you wanted to do this because you wanted to get more hands-on. What was one of the key learnings from owning the business that influenced your development of Glasshouse?
The
Is there
how
anything that sticks out?
Yeah, a couple things. One, you have to make it super easy and super fast. So,
Mhm.
this is not the operating system of the business. It's not the accounting system. It's not the back office system. Service Titan or whoever you're using, they do that really well. They route, they book, they bill. It's not that tool. And so that tool might require a lot of setup, customization, and a lot of management because it is managing the execution of the jobs. That's not
Mhm.
what this is. So it was how many buttons can you take out? Not what can you put in, what can you remove? How
Mhm.
easy can we make this? And then having to use it yourself, drink your own champagne or eat your own dog food, whatever you want to call it, really makes you have to understand the experience of the user at the end
Right.
of the day.
Hmm.
If every product could be a customer of itself, I think most products would be better.
Yeah, yeah, no question. And so, as it relates to myself as a user, let's say again, I'm a plumber, and I
Mhm.
want to target, I don't know, people who have just, I think you mentioned, people who have just moved into the neighborhood. I can get into that kind of demographic, right?
Mhm.
How long that can is it as sophisticated as understanding where they moved from? Is there that layer of granularity there?
No, that would be cool. I guess I could help you with that in a way. So what we do is we pull in two types of information. We pull in property information and homeowner information or consumer information. We marry those two together.
Hmm.
So when you say, show me houses in this neighborhood that I'm in right now, that someone moved into in the last 6 months. It'll show you those houses, but it'll show you all the owners with the phone numbers, the names, and the emails. But then it shows you the profile of that homeowner. So it can have their LinkedIn, it can have their Facebook. It'll also
Wow.
show you all the Google reviews that they gave to other businesses. So what you're seeing now is, well, if I wanted to click on Craig, and at this point, I would suspect you're into a relatively large purchase price service. Maybe if you're doing
Hmm.
pools, you can do some pretty targeted marketing.
Hmm.
Now, I went to University of Minnesota. If you want to sell me a pool, send me some gopher gear. You probably got my attention.
Hmm.
But you could do that level of investigation, and you can also see how that homeowner has reviewed other businesses from their Google account. And at that point, I'm saying, what am I walking into? If you called me, Craig, and said, come out and give me a window washing quote, and I'm looking at it saying, okay, well, I can see your house in the software. I can already give you a quote from right here. I could quote you on the phone right now.
Hmm.
But even if we are going to show up, which if I can, I want to, I'd like to show up and prioritize the business around the best buyers.
Hmm.
Craig gives 5-star reviews all the time. Jimmy gives 1-star reviews all the time. So if I'm going to put them in order of who I'm showing up to today, Craig's first on my list, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool, man. So you've only been, as I recall, I think you've only really been open for business since the beginning of the year. Is that right?
Yeah, we started the business a year ago. First 6 months is all R&D and market research. Then the
Hmm.
product starts to get into people's hands in January.
Okay. And then has it been continually evolving since then?
Oh yeah, I would
Yeah.
say if only in just 6 months, we've made massive leaps forward in terms of what we've able to offer and the level of data and all that stuff. And software is never done. That's kind of a
Right.
saying in the software industry. It's never finished.
Right.
What if you think you're finished, then you're finished and you should get out because it's never done.
Right. Right. That's good stuff. And so what kind of feedback are you getting from customers?
This is totally, it's actually the feedback is they almost don't believe it's possible. Like I have to get on the phone and show them. And then they're like blown away because there isn't another tool that offers this ability to do that targeted process.
Hmm.
And what they tend to start, the wheels, I can see it on the calls, the wheels are turning. Oh, I can create a different way to create business now. I haven't even considered this up until
Hmm.
now. I've literally just been spending more money on Google Ads or whatever it is. Okay, how can I do this? What else can this do for me? Can I start using this for that quoting thing you were like? Can I start like delivering quotes faster? Sure. Can I start understanding the buyers and their reviews? How are we going to start stack ranking people's based on their Google reviews? Because people who give great reviews, we want to favor those people. Like they start to unlock all these other questions they've never thought about answering, and it's all data driven. And
Hmm.
I think that's the core of what we're doing is trying to bring data driven decision making to a place where they really want to be able to do that. They just
Hmm.
lack the tool to make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So I can see that if I show up at a job or I've got a job scheduled, that your software, if I go in there and say, okay, I'm hitting this address, that it can just spit out maybe a prioritized list based on the criteria that I want it to prioritize on. Can it do something like that?
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So
It's cool.
that's
And then I would have the opportunity if I were interested in somebody, say, moving from like whatever, from California or whatever, because I think that they're a good target for me. then I'd have to maybe do a little bit more drilling, but I could probably figure it out that they just moved from wherever it is they moved from by getting their LinkedIn profile or something like that.
Yep, I could do some investigation. But the other part of that I would say is if you're in an area you really know you want to be, right? So geographically look at homes in a certain value or a certain age tend to be around one another, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if
Mm-hmm.
you're in a neighborhood you're already doing work, you're going to look at that neighborhood and say, I might filter it a little bit, but I don't have to filter it probably that much because
Mm-hmm.
it's an area that meets my criteria. The other thing we do is we take your existing customers and we layer them on top of all of this so you can see where your customers are in the world. And then you can start targeting those geographic locations. You say, we have a cluster of customers in, you know, right north Franklin, Tennessee. Okay, right north of downtown Franklin, we've got a big cluster of customers. Let's go unlock everybody else there. We're out
Mm-hmm.
there already. We've
Mm-hmm.
got word of mouth happening. Let's get into those people. Let's call them, email them, text them, and let's take all their information and put it in a targeted ad list. So if you do want to keep doing ads, keep doing ads. We agree you should do. I do ads. My business does ads.
Mm-hmm.
But take those geographic areas and make them real tight that
Yeah.
where you know you have a good fit and
Mm-hmm.
target ad to those areas, not just all of South Nashville,
Right.
that area.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And then targeting it only it only makes sense. You would only assume that if you target certain areas like that, your close rate's going to kind of go up. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, you just assume that. Do you get any feedback from your clients that yes, they're able to close a lot more leads because you've got good quality leads coming out of your tool?
So they're looking for 60, 70, 80% closes on an inbound lead. So really good home service businesses want to be in that starts with a 7, 8, 80% win rate when you call them.
Mm-hmm.
That's best of class. There isn't a measurement that most of them would give you around what's my outbound close rate because it's not a traditional metric or measurement. The best we're getting is we kind of walk to the 2 or 3 houses next door and maybe we leave a door hanger or something like that. We're really
Mm-hmm.
just trying to create another inbound later. And so what we're seeing is the ability to routinely take a job and turn it into at least one more job. If you can be one or more, if you can get to 1.0 or 1.1 even job of a job,
Mm-hmm.
in theory, mathematically, that becomes a self-sustaining system.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't been at this long enough to show that someone can go a whole year by basically taking one job and just keep daisy chaining it together forever. But every job you can get off of a job is a huge impact on your bottom line. It's the
Yeah.
profit margin on that job. You didn't pay for the lead. You didn't have to do a bunch more driving. It is your win rates in theory should be significantly higher.
Yeah, it's actually even better than a referral because, but to your point, you don't have to drive to the if you're already out there, assuming that you can, do the work the same day, which
Yeah,
might be a
we have a customer in here in Tennessee in Chattanooga that does mobile brakes. It's a really cool business. He built this business around they come to your house and they do your brake job or whatever it is like around the brakes at your house. Because I haven't met the person who wants to go get their brakes changed, right? That's not like
right.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
And so they come and take care of everything. And he said, we can handle 4 or 5 jobs a day per tech. We do 2.5,
Hmm.
2.5, whatever it is. And so what's it worth to you to get one more job per day for each of those techs? How much do you profit off of that? We start doing the math and it becomes hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars
Wow.
of profit
Hmm.
because all he's doing is filling up his existing capacity. It's the service industry where service-minded businesses, you think that tech is just going boom, 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 boom from job to job to job. If that's not the case, the business is usually still paying them. They're saying,
Hmm.
cool, you have a 2-hour gap. We'll still pay you for those hours. Now you won't get commissions. It's not as good for you, but I guarantee our team, for instance, a certain amount of hours every like full-time hours.
Hmm.
Even if we couldn't fill up their day, we're going to pay them. We try to find stuff for them to do, like selling. But if we can create a digital process that unlocks all the doors so that when they come to the neighborhood, they have other appointments to go deliver quotes and sell on instead
Hmm.
of just cold door knocking. It's why we call this digital door knocking. We're creating
Hmm.
a new process so that we can create more efficient field techs who aren't sitting around waiting for the next job.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. I tell you. And so, um, I are you running it well? So, competition. Who's your competition? I guess it's from the small business owner's perspective, you're competing against traditional advertising. And so you have obviously created a unique selling proposition for yourself that differentiates against that. But is there anybody that you've seen or heard about that is competing in this space, like as an alternative to what you do?
Not that I've found. I try to look really hard. I just did an audit of 125 software companies in the home services space this past month to see what's everybody up to, what are they doing. I can see the world moving into this direction. There are more data providers coming in.
Mhm.
They're trying to create platforms that give you information about people you already know. I'm starting to see like little bits and pieces of this concept popping up in various places around home services, but I
Mhm.
have yet to run into the company that is laser focused on this specific find more business, outbound your next best clients. I haven't seen it
Mhm.
yet. We
Yeah.
will, I'm sure. When we are massively successful, you just create your own competition.
Yeah, no
But
question.
I have found that that means we need to do a lot of education in the marketplace because this is new. But it also means that if someone wants to do this, there is really only one place for now.
Yeah, cool. That is really, really cool. Um, so congratulations on what you've been able to do with Glass House. You've got a great. I mean, you founded the company a year ago, and here you are. It only took you, I say, only took you 6 months to get something out for people to, people to start using, and then giving you feedback. So it seems like you're making pretty good progress within 1 year period. That's pretty good.
Don't tell my team that because we want to go faster.
I
We
won't.
want to go faster. So no, I think no, that is not something you have to try and remind yourself in these types of journeys like this is great, but we're happy, but we're not satisfied, right? Like
Yeah.
we're excited, but we're not satisfied. We want to keep going, and we want to figure out how can we just go a little bit faster.
Yeah, well, in today's world, you can't rest because, if you do, just like you said, somebody's going to fill the void. Somebody will see what you're doing. Guaranteed, you're not going to be alone in this space.
No, I don't
Probably,
think so.
yeah,
Not for long.
yeah, and
This
so
is
so that
this
should
is
be mo
this is this needs to exist in the world. This is I think this is the right time and for this to exist in the world, and that means somebody else is probably already working on it.
Yeah, yeah, no question, no question. Okay, Jimmy. So let me ask you some other questions here. Um, So you've been doing this. This is the first company you've founded,
Mhm.
and you've given birth to, brought to life in the short period here. What's your biggest learning? What's the biggest thing you've learned uh, bringing Glasshouse to life?
So, not specific to software, just in business in general, the thing that I learned along the way is that the people that you bring into your business with you have to be every bit as committed and passionate and excited about what you're doing as you are, especially in early days. Now, that might not be possible forever, but the longer that can be true, the better your chance of success. And so, we have board advisors, industry experts, published authors, people that I know. We have board members. I have my CTO and marketing partners and people like that. And when they come in, we've had some people show up and say it wasn't for them relatively quickly because you have to be super excited about solving this problem, building this company, and be really excited about getting up every morning and doing it. And if you're not, then it's just too hard. It's
Yeah,
just too hard to go from 0 to 1 for anybody to do it unless it's so passionate that they refuse to fail at that mission.
yeah, yeah. But I couldn't agree with you more. What's your steps to assure that people are passionate? I mean, you ask the question up front, and they may or may not tell you. Is it obvious after you start working with them or during your interview process? How do you screen?
So I've had the opportunity to hire a lot of people in my career, and I would say at different stages of your growth and where you're as a business, that process changes a lot. At this early stage, I'm looking for people who are trying to create their own job, actually. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't hire people full time at this stage of our business. We have, less than 10 people here on the team.
Mm-hmm.
It always starts as a fractional part-time thing. It can grow and morph and get bigger, and a lot of them have. But we start with, here's like just part-time engagement, really consulting type of thing. And so I'm looking for somebody who is basically proactively creating their own job. They're
Mm-hmm.
coming up with new things all the time they want to do. They're just picking stuff up and going with it. At this stage of growth, there's an unlimited number of things to do. So
Mm-hmm.
there is no reason that someone couldn't have picking up new things and doing new stuff almost every day if they wanted to. And so if they're truly excited and motivated by that proposition, there's plenty for them and they'll find it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Finding them on the front door is that balance between trying to sell someone on your vision and your dream of what we're going to do together, but then being really upfront about the fact that this isn't going to be like working at Salesforce. This is going to be like working in someone's garage for the next 6 months. And do you want to work in someone's garage?
Mm-hmm. And they give you a straight answer, I guess. Yes or no?
Usually if you ask, people tell you.
Yeah.
Usually if you are really honest with people, they'll usually be pretty honest with you.
Yeah. Very, very true. Um, So I have on the list here, what's your company's bigger than life vision and purpose for being? You kind of touched on that a little bit earlier when you talked about community and helping, small business owners. Is there anything you would add to that as part of your big vision or mission, the company's big vision or mission?
We want to change the way that SMB and mid-market home service businesses find and engage with customers and give the world an entirely different way that that can work that doesn't exist today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So clearly stated, an alternative to the current Google domination in that space, I guess, right?
it's a great, I heard something the other day. Someone said, 30 or whatever years ago, Google's been around for about 30 years. 30 years ago, everybody was having to compete with whoever could afford the biggest Yellow Pages ad. And so you had this kind of issue where the biggest player in town in every local market, because these are localized businesses, basically outbid everybody else for that space.
Mm-hmm.
And then the internet showed up and Google showed up and democratized it and said, you can all participate now. It's great. And everyone said, this is great. And all we've done is recreate the exact same scenario on a different platform because they had to monetize it eventually. And it became very much a monetization game. And so now you have the biggest player in town out Google advertising everybody else. And so getting to that top 3 of the rankings, it becomes everybody's full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
And it also doesn't solve the problem of going out and working with the right buyer because you're just basically all running around trying to get the phone to ring. You have no way to know who it is until you show up.
Yeah, right, right. Okay, cool. Um, so tell me where you think, man, I mean, you've been on a journey here. You've been with a lot of startups. You've taken them, uh, you know, to be bought out or sold, and now you're starting yourself here, founding Glass House. Um, what is the where do you think most businesses fail in their growth journey uh, or in achieving their mission? Where's the shortcoming that in your experience or from your perspective?
I'm going to put this in a continuum based on where you are, right? So in the really, really early days, just getting from that zero to a dollar, a couple $100,000 million of revenue, failure can be about not being able to find the right types of buyers. You're not solving the right problem. You're not listening. You're not iterating fast enough. It's really execution and product based because you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to find product market fit. But when you talk about hitting growth goals and targets, it means that you're able to now at least start setting goals based on prior performance. That stops being your biggest problem. And what starts being your bigger problem once you say get to a couple $1 million of revenue and trying to really build a successful business, I see 2 things. One, I see your desires, your goals, or the way you want to operate being put upon the customer. You
Mm-hmm.
want to run an enterprise sales motion, but you're not selling to enterprise buyers. but you perceive that that's how you want to roll, or that's where you eventually want to go. So you apply that to your small business buyers and it doesn't work. Or you want to get paid up front and they don't want to pay you up front. And so you're making people give you all this cash up front because it's your desire, but it's not how your customer likes to buy. And so if you start imposing your desires on them, it's not about you, it's about them. You have to really understand, how does your customer want to work with you? What problems are you solving for them? And how do they want to buy your solution?
Yeah.
That's the execution part, which I see a lot of companies. That's actually really common. Of all the software companies I've worked at or consulted with, the one of the biggest go-to-market problems I see is mismatched process to customer journey or buyer persona.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what keeps you from being able to execute. What keeps you from doing more than you ultimately do is usually not dreaming big enough. And I've had the privilege and the luck of being part of companies where we grew 100% year over year, 200%, took a company from growing 20% up to like 80% in a year, really high growth businesses. And if I could go back to younger me, I would say, if you just aim a little higher, I'll bet you'll do better. You're probably not like pinning out on your potential here. There's probably more in there. If you're setting 100% target, hitting it every year, maybe you should be setting 120% target, because you probably at least come close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good stuff, man. Those two are great. Not matching to customer wants. Kind of imposing your own view on things. The converse of that, I think, is Amazon, who is like so customer centric on, at least from my experience in day one. It's all about the customer and what their wants are, not just their needs, but their wants, and not dreaming big enough. I can't. I can't let that go by without saying that's the other thing we teach. We teach people to dream and dream big, and don't worry about what it takes to get there right now. Just dream big, and then start setting your RAS, so that you've got that kind of programmed into your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And then before you know it, things start happening in that way. Of course, you still have to have goals, but don't, your 20-year dream, your 10 or 15 or 20-year dream is not a dream unless if you have a plan to get if you have a goal to get there, if it makes sense right now, then it's not a dream. It's kind of on your to-do list. So dreaming big is something we teach, and that's really cool that you've kind of honed in on that. But
I'll add to that. What I've seen is, taking a company from like 1 million to 30 million in, 4 years
mhm.
in recurring revenue, right? So you're packing on this recurring revenue. Is year one, cool, wasn't that hard. Year two got harder. Year three got harder. As you start to get into these bigger numbers, what you did stops working. You have to come up with new stuff. It's really easy for your team. So you're the executive in charge of this, or you're the driving force, whatever that is. It's easy to let your team start making excuses. We've called everybody already. I've heard that one. We've called everybody already. Or we're running out of people to call leads, or marketing's not good enough anymore, or the product won't keep up, or the market won't support us selling this much software in a year, or whatever the thing is in a year. The excuses will start to show up because what they're doing stops working, and they are not starting new things. Everyone thinks that growth looks like a straight line. It's not. It's just layers of new stuff along the way,
Yeah,
stacked on
right,
top of one another.
right.
And when you start to hear those excuses, that's when, as a leader, you have to stop it right there. You have to nip it in the bud and say, no, we're not thinking of excuses. We're thinking of solutions. I want you to go back and think of 6 ways that we would solve that problem. And ultimately, if we try and fail, we did our best, but we're not going to give up and say it's impossible.
Yeah, right, right. And you're exactly right. It takes different ways. Growing the business at this level takes different thinking than growing it from this level to that level once you're up the exponential curve.
Correct. And it gets
Uh,
harder. It just gets harder. And so sometimes people say, this is too hard. I don't want to do that. I didn't sign up for that. I signed up for this. And
mhm.
that's where you see businesses looking at, bringing in different leadership or
Yeah,
bringing in new
right.
team members, whatever it is, for different stages of a journey.
Yeah.
That's okay too. But if you can coach your team to continually evolve and go on that full journey and be willing to stop saying this is hard or not get into the I can't do that mindset, then they can probably go a lot further than they thought too. Just like you can grow faster than you think, they can probably go farther than they realized.
Right, right. And I guarantee you they can, right? They can go farther than what it is they think they can. And that's all part of the mindset thing and part of the leader's, responsibility to get them in the right mindset,
100%.
So tell me, Jimmy, what's the biggest challenge you have right now? What's the biggest problem you have? What is it that keeps you up at night? What are you worried about?
Um, we're building something that doesn't exist in the world, not in a super meet, it's not a super like well-known category, right? So if we were building another CRM or another, pickup tool that people already have and know about, then it would be easy for them to find us. It would be easy for us to explain what we do. So the thing I think about a lot is how do we educate the market? How do we get in front of people in a way where we can talk to it, like get enough people to start creating more word of mouth marketing and things like that. When I get on the phone and I talk to somebody, it's almost always a hit. So it's getting through and busting through that noise where they don't know who you are is the thing that I spend most of my time on.
So establishing some credibility in the marketplace and having the opportunity to tell your story because you're confident that once the story is heard, that you've got a pretty good chance of closing the lead.
Yeah, people will say, oh, well, we don't have the brand of a big company. We don't have a brand of that big company. And it's so much easier for that big company. And they earned that right. They earned that right by demonstrating value, building a big business, and returning a lot back to their customers in terms of benefits. You have not earned the right yet. So you
Mhm.
are out there asking for people to give you some of their most precious resource, which is their time. And you haven't really even earned the right to ask for it yet. So you're going to have to ask a lot more people and you're going to have to be a little more persuasive and you're going to have to find those people who are a little more forward thinking
Mhm.
than maybe the people who are willing to sign up because everybody else already did.
Mhm. Mhm. Um, oh gosh, I lost the thought. And what else makes it a challenge is that you're not selling to your point. You don't want to sell to big corporations. You're really selling to the small mom and pop. And so a strategy that addresses how can you en masse address all of those small mom and pop HVAC or medium to small to medium tier
Mhm.
type home service businesses that would could benefit from your from your offering, and how can you do that in an efficient way? Figuring out a strategy there is that's very doable, though, right? I mean, I'm sure you've got some ideas, from your experience in growing sales teams and growing sales. There's definitely some things you could do.
One thing I've seen across my career is the order at which you invest as a founder into various departments of your business generally is your strategy. And it will tell you a lot about the priorities of the business and how it wants to grow and build its market. And so we invested in two places significantly, which is product engineering.
Hmm.
So, world-class CTO and engineering team, and two part-time marketers and myself. So
Hmm.
marketing and the product are the stars of the show. It's not boots on the ground sales. It's how do we educate a market and create a way to get in front of as many people as possible? And then how are we building products that solve their problems versus being sales led, which I've led sales led organizations before, are really much more about flooding the zone with as many meetings as you can get by going out
Hmm.
and knocking on doors and things like that.
Yeah, great. That's awesome. Man, this has been a great conversation. And it's been awesome to learn about, well, of course, yourself and your journey, but about Glasshouse too, and what you're doing to kind of break the mold there and introduce, some alternatives to small and medium-sized business owners as they deliver their service. But so I'm gonna wrap it up with one last question, if you'll let me, if
Sure.
you'll allow me, I know you're a reader. You like to read. All of us, are looking to improve ourselves, continue to learn and educate. Tell me a book that you read recently that you wish you had read earlier in your career, or maybe one that you did read earlier in your career that you've continued to lean on?
So I really like reading. You can see back here, there's books behind me. This is all full of books.
Hmm.
And I'm going to give you two of them, which is I wish I'd read They Ask You Answer by Marcus Sheridan way sooner. He comes from home services.
Oh, wow.
He built a successful pool construction company in Virginia. He's a professional speaker now. He's got another book that just came out. It's about basically answering customer questions. It's all about customer centric selling and creating an experience and how you sell stuff. And
Hmm.
it's, if you sell home services, by the way, read this book. It is like, it should be on every home service business shelf. And then this is called The Transparency Sale by
Hmm.
Todd Caponi, who is a friend and advisor on our board. And he basically talks about how uncommon transparency will lead to better outcomes for buyers and sellers. And he's been a massively successful speaker, author, and executive at software companies as well. I read this years ago, and I've had him speak to every sales organization I've ever been a part of. He's fantastic. Marcus is fantastic. You should read The Transparency Sale and They Ask You Answer.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I'm putting those two on my list, buddy.
Cool. They're good ones. I promise you'll like them.
Yeah, great. Well, hey, man, I really appreciate the time you spent with us, sharing to the community here about your business and your journey, and looking forward to hearing great news about the growth that is imminent. I think that is imminent with your company. So, Jimmy, have a good day, and we'll talk to you later, man.
Thanks, Craig. I appreciate it.